r/AskReddit. What's the dumbest thing you believed as a kid? That my grandma G had a glass eye, and that she lost her eye in a bar fight. Nope, took me until I was 20 to discover she just had a lazy eye, and my dad and his brothers always told kids that story every holiday meetup. The teachers sleep at school. The first time I saw one of my teachers at the supermarket, I was shocked. I must have thought the school kept them in a broom closet or something. Not me, but my brother was convinced for a few weeks that some cows had longer legs on one side of their body so they could stand on hills. That dinosaurs were still alive on another island, and I kept asking my mother if we could go to the island with all the dinosaurs. Then she told me they were all dead. I thought the black market was an actual market, like under a bridge or something. I believed this for longer as I want to admit. Same, like in farmer's market for guns and organs. Get your kidneys here. Good kidneys for a fair price. That fat people explode when they get too fat. A wafer thin mint. That actors' TV characters would have to come back into a studio for each rerun of a show movie. I would always be so amazed that people would have the time to go into a room with a camera multiple times a day just so I could watch them do the same thing over and over again. I used to think that laugh tracks were somehow real life, like I was hearing everyone else laughing who was watching the same show I was. In hindsight, this is really stupid. Obviously the sound is coming from the speakers, but growing up we only had TV at my grandma's place, and I remember laughing really loud when the laugh track came on so all her neighbors would think I got the joke too. My mom told me babies came from pumpkin patches. I thought that if you eat a pumpkin you'll become pregnant. Only if you eat the seeds. My stepdad had an old truck with 2 gas tanks that he would flip a switch to change from one to the other. He had us convinced that he would magically steal gas from other vehicles. He would tell us to pick one and we would watch the gas dial go from E to F while driving on the highway. Blew my mind. I thought a baby just randomly appeared in a woman's womb. I stayed awake crying about it because I didn't want to become pregnant. Same, oh my god. And at one point I somehow got the idea that stepping on grass was what made you pregnant, that there were little thorn things too small to notice in the grass, and they took years, but they traveled up to your belly and made a baby in there, but the years could depend. That's why people had babies at different ages. I was so scared that it would happen to me, that maybe I just stepped on a faulty thorn that only had like 5 years on it and I would get pregnant at 8. I had no idea where I got this idea from. My brother and I wrote letters to Santa, and our dad would open up the coal furnace door and we would throw them in the fire. We believed they would go directly to the North Pole. I used to watch my dad go to the ATM, look at the receipt and get grumpy frustrated. I knew how bank accounts and ATMs worked, but the kid logic part of my brain figured that they also kind of worked like slot machines, in that, when you conducted some transaction on them, you got that slip with 3 icons on it. If you got one with 3 cherries, for example, you would take it inside and they would deposit $50 or whatever into your account. I figured he was frustrated because he kept losing all the time. I even asked him a few times when he was looking at the receipt, "Did you win?" And he was like, "No." That sex was literally sleeping next to one another and making moaning sounds. I heard things I wanna forget. You know those animatronic dinosaurs at museums? I knew they were robots, but as a child I was convinced that the robot was unaware of its animatronic status. I believed that if the robots wanted to, it could and would step over the barrier and eat me and everyone else. This fear was compounded when my dad, more than once, picked me up and pretended he would drop me down the other side of the barrier. I still remember the giant robot scorpion at a local museum when I was a kid. That thing scared the living shit out of me. When I was young my parents told me that if I kept leaving the fridge open then I would freeze the whole world and then no one would like me. And then no one would like me. I'm still cackling like a ducking madman at that for some reason. That all bald men were kidnappers. No idea where it came from. I really don't think I was kidnapped as a child. But if I was, it was definitely a bald man that did it. I thought men who were hairy all over were less evolved. For some reason, I thought every car that was made had to do a crash test. Probably because my dad once told that our car had a very good rating in the crash test. I was amazed by the fact that all cars were repaired so well before being sold. I thought this as well. I saw some show where they were testing teddy bears by lighting them on fire and said every toy was tested. Blue fire was cold. Azula. I had no idea that morning sickness was associated with pregnancy. My coach was concerned when I shrugged my shoulders and stated that's what was probably causing my sluggishness at football camp practice. I had scoliosis surgery when I was 14 and was extremely nauseous for like 2 months because of the medication. I got into a routine where I would always throw up in the morning, so I kept a bowl beside my bed. My granddad came to visit me and naturally asked about the bowl. In front of my granddad, mom, and dad, I, without missing a beat, exclaimed that it was to help with my morning sickness. My mom burst out laughing, but my granddad and dad didn't think it was so funny until they realized what I had meant. I didn't know cars have a turn signal lever, so I thought the car knew where we were going. I thought the car would use the arrows to tell my parents where to turn. I thought the same thing. I wondered how the heck the car knew where we were going. My parents didn't tell the car where they wanted to go. I was confused. I often got caught doing stupid stuff when I was a young rascal. When I would get home, my dad would say a little birdie told him he seen me do such and such with the boys. Up until I was 8 or 9 maybe, I believed my father had some sort of snitch pigeon keeping an eye on me. Edit. Punctuation amendments. I thought that drinking and driving meant any drink. I burst into tears the first time I heard about drinking and driving. My dad always had a Dr. Pepper when we went places and I thought he was going to go to jail forever. Escalator stairs were one time used and just kinda piled up under the floor. That's so funny to me. Just all these stairs in a bin. Go to take them out to the truck and dump them the stair disposal. My brother used to think that a man sat under the escalators and operated them. He also thought that man's name was James and that was his real dad, not our dad. So every time we passed the escalators at the mall, my brother would scream at our dad, "You're not my real dad. James is my real dad." Edit. Just woke up and realized this blew up, lol. Thank you for the awards and upvotes. So, more details. My brother has always had a vivid imagination. I have no earthly idea where he got this from. He is currently trying to become a writer / director / producer / etc. Also, he's the spitting image of my dad, so there's no question of paternity there. My brother is just a duckin' weirdo. When I was about 4, my older sister told me that since the population of Japan was so high, Japanese people slept sideways on their beds so they could fit more people on every bed. I believed it until I went to a sleepover at 13 and suggested that we sleep Japanese style on the bed so everyone could fit. This is too good. My dad also made me believe there were little gnomes working in ATM and vending machines. I thought that pregnant was a bad word. I was the most sheltered kid ever. I'm with you. I was corrected once for saying it. A woman is expecting. That we had to change our names during different stages of our lives. Like we have a toddler's name, a teenager's name and an adult's name. Timmy, Tim, Timothy. 2 gems from my youth. 1. I used to think my testicles were the eggs of my future children. Like, one day they would hatch and I'd have 2 kids. 2. I thought safe sex meant someone left their clothes on. Like your first one. I thought one actually got sent into the uterus. I thought homosexuals were people who only had sex at home. I mean, you're not wrong. Have you seen gay people having sex outside? Once I was playing with some toys and my mom was talking on the phone to her friend. I guess they were talking about kids growing up and having families someday because my mom puts her hand over the phone and asked me if I wanted kids someday and if I wanted boys or girls. I gave it some thought and said that I wanted 1 boy and 1 girl. For the longest time after this, I thought that it had been completely decided. Like my mom was just on the phone with whoever you called to place an order for kids, and my order had been finalized. That every time you learn something new, you got a new wrinkle in your brain. My brother had me convinced for a while that each person had to have a unique favorite color, and since his was blue, I had to change mine. On my first day of kindergarten, We had to introduce ourselves and say our favorite color. I was super stressed out because the kids in front of me picked the good colors, and I kinda panicked and told everyone my favorite color was gray. In my family we were kind of assigned colors by my parents. My little sister and I looked like identical twins, so my parents dressed us in different colors. My older sister was much taller than us and had already chosen blue as her color, so my parents went with a chipmunks theme. The oldest was blue like Simon. I was red for Alvin and my little sister was green for Theodore. Anytime a family member brought us back t-shirts or dresses from their travels, we always got our color and it kind of stuck. We still all predominantly wear our colors. We're all in our late 30s and even our raincoats as adults are our colors. It's quite silly. I've only ever worn a red raincoat. When I buy a new one it's always a red one. When I was younger, my dad upgraded the speaker setup for the TV to include surround sound. The rear speakers were mounted to the ceiling and were large white boxes. On the front of the speakers it had the numbers 3508. I always thought that was kind of strange until many years later I realized they were Bose speakers mounted upside down. The HP trademark is just 4 diagonal lines. The dogs were boys and cats were girls. Anecdotally, I've noticed a lot of older people seem to think this. Most of the people of my parents' generation refer to all dogs they meet as good boy even after they're told it's a female. Not sure if this was just a UK thing, but as a child I had some of those gooey jelly alien toys that came in plastic eggs, and the big rumor on the playground at the time was, if you put a boy alien and girl alien in the same egg and put it in the fridge, they would make a new baby alien overnight. I told my parents about it and told them I was doing it. While in bed, my parents added the extra baby alien overnight, so when I woke up and found the third alien, I lost it, went into school and told everyone. For years I swore blind it was true and really happened. It was a very heartbreaking day when I realized what had happened. People don't like people that grow vegetables in their house. I secretly celebrated my mom's poor in-house gardening skills because her tomato plants never had any tomatoes. I was about 11 when I figured out what those tomato plants were. That the gender of a baby depended on which person was trying harder during sex. I was told that your left and right testicles produced different gendered sperm. When I was younger, our garage always had a very distinct smell. My parents told my siblings and I that the smell in our garage was the smell of burnt tires because my dad would work on cars and dirt bikes as a hobby. Being the middle child, we always tend to find out the family secrets whether we want to or not. Fast forward to when I am 15 years old, I standing in a parking lot with my mother and 2 girls I was in acquaintance with. As we were all waiting in this parking lot for our friend who was having the quince, I started to smell burnt tires. I said to my mom that it smelled like burnt tires. My mom and the 2 girls all started chuckling. I was confused as to what was funny and the 2 girls said to me that I was not smelling burnt tires. My mom eventually told me what that smell was and she just tried to convince me my smelling was off. I still put 2 and 2 together that night. In short, I was 15 years old when I found out that my dad was a huge pothead and would just smoke pot all the time in our garage. Also, burnt tires and weed should not smell the same. I thought everything contained water and could be dehydrated and turned to powder. Edit. Guys, I've never seen any Batman movies. I guess this was in an old one with Adam West, but no, I didn't see it. Please stop asking. Dehydrated water. When I was a kid, my mom explained to me that we all had belly buttons because that's how our moms fed us before we were born. So I thought when you got pregnant, your belly button opened up and you just put whatever you wanted to down there. Like I thought women were just shoving chicken legs in their belly buttons. Plot twist. I'm a postpartum nurse now. Bloody Mary would come through my mirror and kill me. Before color was invented, the whole world was in black and white, not just TVs. Now I wasn't exactly a kid, but I was under 18, so I hope it counts. So when I was about 18 I was watching TV with my parents and a drug ad comes up on the TV and then gets to the part where it tells you who shouldn't take the meds, i.e. pregnant, nursing and stuff like that. So after the ad I look at both my parents and say, well that sucks, you guys can't take those meds. My parents, both very confused, looked at me like, what? Why? Which I tell them, Well, it says you can't take it if you're nursing. Both my parents are nurses and I mistook nursing from the ad that it applies to nurses. My parents had a damn good laugh over that one. Edit. I know that was pretty dumb, but funny. The wind was a living entity. His name was Billy and he had the face of what I think is, or is like, the Scream mask. I thought boys didn't have balls till they hit puberty. I took their balls dropped literally. If you turn on the light in the car while driving, you'll get arrested. Yes. How did every parent from 1986 to 1999 agree this would be a thing? I thought that my stomach was actually the entire volume of my body. Eating food would pile it all up as if putting it into a bag. When I was asked why I would drink or eat smaller foods when I was full, my reasoning was there are still cracks between all the other food I ate, so it can fall through those gaps. And that the no minus sign outside bars and taverns was there so they wouldn't get coal dust inside and flash their lights at everyone. That I'd be a doctor or lawyer because that's all the family talked about. My great uncle did a low rent Superman cosplay for me when I was visiting at around 6 or years old, and by low rent I mean blue jeans with red underwear over top, and a blue bath towel as a cape. I realized all of this several years later. At the time I was convinced it was really Superman visiting us in rural Arkansas, and I carried that surety into 2nd grade, where I got into a fight with a classmate who claimed Superman was a fictional character. I know this response is already buried, but thanks OP for asking a question that revived a cherished childhood memory. My dad told me he was an alien. I was super into outer space. I told all my friends my dad was an alien. Well, wasn't till I was a older teen I realized he meant an alien from France living in the US. I felt dumb as rocks. But I am an alien. You just didn't ask what kind. I thought the 4th of July fireworks were for my birthday, which is the 2nd of July. In sports, I used to think whatever number the player wore was how old that player was. When I saw a picture of Babe Ruth, my reaction was, that's one big 3-year-old. Oh boy, I've been waiting for a question like this. So I grew up near a nuclear power plant, which 4-year-old me thought was a cloud factory. My parents didn't take me to church, but I knew that people went to church to worship God, who created the world. I was also a huge fan of the Care Bears at the time, who lived in the clouds. What do those 3 random tidbits about myself have to do with this question? Well, 4-year-old me came to the conclusion that the Care Bears go to church and worship the nuclear power plant as the creator of their world. That was perfect logic to my tiny toddler brain. Watching Star Wars: Return of the Jedi, when Darth Vader is defeated and Luke looks at his hand, I didn't understand that he was metaphorically becoming his father. I thought if he killed Darth Vader, he would literally become Darth Vader, suit and everything. Dad told me if the ice cream truck had its music playing it was out of ice cream for the day. I believed mothers breastfed regular milk with the right boob, and, get this, chocolate milk with the left boob. When I was pretty young, probably about 5 years old, I met the Black Power Ranger and got a picture of him signed. In the picture you could see that he was missing his middle finger and my mom told me it was because he had flipped his mom off so she cut it off. I believed it until I was about 20 years old when my mom told me she had lied about it and didn't actually know what happened. Growing up, I told so many people this guy's mom cut his finger off. When I was younger I thought the years would stop at 2013 and then all the years would repeat itself again. Also I thought Oprah sang opera. That adults knew what they were doing. As an adult, this one gets me every single day. Even adults that really need to know what the duck they're doing, police, politicians, etc., are still just winging it. Not a whole lot of people actually really have any idea what they're doing. I believed the San Juan thumbcutter would chop off my thumb if I didn't stop being a thumbsucker. My parents told me he would with such palpable fear that I totally bought it. That when you turned 18 your parents weren't in charge anymore. Pretty much in charge until you're off their payroll. When I first hit puberty, at 9, I was terrified of getting a boner in class. I'm a female. I believed for way too long that pickles were just regular sized cucumbers that got, I dunno, chemically miniaturized during the pickling process. That I know all about being an adult when I was in my 20s. Color didn't exist until the 1960s. I saw old video footage that was black and white and assumed color simply didn't exist yet. Dogs and horses were male, cats and cows were female. Bro, you made it to the end, you're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content. Might. It's free and that's a great price.